So welcome everyone to the CCSQ Data and Analytics Q2 Town Hall. For those who maybe just haven't joined us in a while or need some information again, the CCSQ Data and Analytics Town Hall is now held quarterly on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and is designed to provide our user community with system updates, general announcements, and different training demos. So with that, and just a quick note that this call is being recorded as you join today. So just some administrative reminders to go over before we pass things over to our speakers today and go over our agenda. Please stay muted during the call to minimize interruptions. After each presentation, we are going to have a brief question and answer. So please post the questions in the Teams chat for presenters to address at the end of their sessions. And then also we have a record of those questions so we can go ahead and get those published for our user community so everyone can review that material again later. And then all meeting materials are going to be made available on the CCSQ DNA portal after our event. So today's agenda, first we're going to be kicking things off with introducing the new CDR-IDR pipeline. Then we're going to be moving to Casper and provider schema deprecation. Then data operations and governance updates. Next, CDR data catalog updates and restrictions. Fifth, we'll have training hub updates. And then finally, we'll be wrapping things up today with the CCSQ DNA resource awareness practices. So with that, I'm going to be passing things over to our first speakers of the day, Justina and Trupal, for introducing the new CDR-IDR pipeline.
Thank you very much, Julia. Could you switch to the next slide, please? Thank you. So welcome everyone. We wanted to share with you some exciting news. We have diligently been working on establishing an enhanced secure access between CDR and IDR so that experience with accessing IDR formatted data will be enhanced. Wanted to reiterate why we are working on it, why we are enhancing iteratively the connections that we provide to you. So everything we do aligns with the strategic objectives, the ones from CMS, CCSQ, as well as IHG. I'm not going to read them through, but I have included them to the slide for your reading. We're doing this to not only align with the goals and objectives, but we also want you to know that we have been working diligently with the OIT team to ensure that you would have seamless experience when accessing IDR formatted data that currently looks differently than the one residing in CDR. As many of you know, we have been broadcasting to the community and meeting with several of you around the elimination of data duplicity and enhancement of the ability to point to data as opposed to data replication. What are the benefits to you? You will have reduced needs to navigate between the multiple repositories. And I know that several of you have to do it today, whether it's related to PAYCO's data or Medicare Advantage Part C data or other. The consistency of data will be improved as well. With our findings, we're alerting the IDR team of expanded needs that our community has with some of the schemas residing on that side, and they have been quite receptive to take notes and schedule either adding the additional pieces of information that we have or potentially bringing in entire schema if that is deemed necessary. The initiative supports the CCSQ's ongoing data modernization journey, and it helps advance the IDR towards becoming the centralized trusted source of our enterprise data. The schemas that are available to you today and the ones that I have focused on were the ones that our community uses the most. is clearly the claims data, all parts, the beneficiary data, the health plan data, provider data, and other. So what is changing for you? It's the connection itself. So for those of you who currently utilize our existing connection between CDR and IDR, you know that you are required to authenticate via Snowflake with your EUA account before you have the ability to access the data. So what we have focused on is enhancement of your experience, which will eliminate some of the manual steps that you're currently taking, and also enhancing the fact that the connection itself is not going to expire after 4 hours as it is doing it today. We are providing this enhanced pipeline in a phased approach. We're opening it up to few organizations to provide us feedback with what their experience is looking like with the new pipeline. That is coming down very, very soon, as soon as the end of this week. And after we have the opportunity to gather the feedback, we will be making announcements when everything is going to be available to you. As we have discussed during the use case meetings, we're also making the documentation available in code comments in an iterative fashion. So if you visit code comments tomorrow, you will see some new documentation available to you that is related to the CDR IDR initiative. And just please note that we will keep on adding information into that space work on an ongoing basis. With that, please go to next slide, and I'll pass it over to Chupal.
Thank you, Justina. So just to go more into details, we will be talking over what changes we have been making from the current solution versus the new one, and what in terms of roadmap it looks like, what we are doing currently and what we are planning to achieve in next quarter or so. So to dive deep into what are the changes, I want to take a few minutes to highlight what is changing with the new enhanced CDR IDR connection and how it differs from the current access model. So under the current connection, users access IDR data through Spark SQL session, as Justina just mentioned. In many cases, must manage separate account requirements and including both HARP ID and UID to access certain data sets. And in addition, the authentication token used by the connection expires every 4 hours, which can create operational challenges for the longer queries, and which might also require more frequent credential management. So with the new enhanced connection, the experience becomes much more integrated within Databricks. For most datasets, users will be able to access IDEA data using their HARP ID without needing additional account management steps. The one exception remains there for Medicare Advantage or Part C data, where existing EUA-based access requirements continue to apply due to governance and security requirements. And from a security and operational perspective, we are also moving from a short-lived 4-hour token model to a public key authentication framework that remains valid for up to 60 days before rotation. So that is a good enhancement we are making in terms of the security and operations. And hopefully this improves reliability and reduces administrative overhead for the users and creates more scalable access model as we continue onboarding additional data sets. So ultimately, the goal here is to provide a simpler, more seamless experience while maintaining the security and governance control that CMS requires. So that's the differentiation we have right now with the current and the new connection. Can we move on to the next slide? Yeah, and for looking ahead, I want to emphasize both what is changing and what is staying exactly the same. So community can differentiate clearly that what is still in place and what exact changes we are talking about here. So first, several important things are not changing. Existing governance controls remain in place. Existing approval processes remain in place. Restricted data protections remain in place, and all reporting, compliance, and security obligations remains unchanged. The enhanced connection is improving how users access approved data, but it is not changing who is authorized to access that data. So we just wanted to mention that here so that everybody can understand what exactly is changing and what is remaining in place. And in terms of where we are today, the enhanced CDR idea connection is currently progressing through pilot activities and validation. And once pilot activities are completed, the capability will be made available more broadly to the community. And the relevant documents which we have been gathering in past few months around what are the schema level mappings and comparisons that will be shared shortly after our phase is completed. And looking beyond the current release, what comes next is CCSQ continues to explore long-term modernization opportunities. So today's solution focuses on secure connectivity and improves user experience. But over the time, we are evaluating more advanced data sharing approaches, including iceberg-based shared data products that could further reduce operational complexity and hopefully improves more scalability and help advance CCSQ's long-term data modernization strategies. And finally, to help us achieve the best results for you, user feedback will be extremely important to us and for the success of this effort. So as you begin using the enhanced connection, we encourage you to share your experience, identify usability improvements, and help us understand where additional support or enhancement may be beneficial. So your feedback will be directly influence how we prioritize future improvement and dataset onboarding efforts. So if users are using currently, help desk is a platform for you guys to request the feedbacks or raise any support tickets. So we'll be continue following that practice moving forward. And I think that's pretty much we have for the first part of it. Back to you, Julia.
Okay, so at this point, we will go ahead and open up for any questions that we may have for our presenters. I'm looking in the chat and not seeing any yet at this point. But we'll just go ahead and give it one more minute to see if any will roll in. Okay, so one just came in. Oh, and another. Will there be a notification sent out when the pilot phase is over and we should start using the new connection?
I'll take that. Yes, we will definitely be communicating with you via our regular channels, which is the Slack messages, email blasts, postings to portal. We'll be announcing when the pipeline is available to everyone, as well as providing you with the documentation on the details as to what is required. So as a preview, I can share with you that our instructions will guide you to obtain one HARP role to have the ability to access all of the data in your purview residing in IDR. I can also share with you that the rules and guidelines on the approval to have access to Medicare Advantage Part C data are not changing, meaning our detailed instructions on how to obtain access to that data are still valid and still will need to be followed in order to obtain access. I can also share with you that for the users that use Medicare Advantage Part C data, if you want to completely avoid the manual authentication to the new solution or / pipeline, you would need to use an EUA-based HARP account when you authenticate to Databricks. Only in that case will you be able to use the new pipeline for Medicare Part C data, Medicare Advantage Part C data. What's the next question?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah, no problem. So Megan, I think I partially have addressed your question. So reiterating it from a different angle. If you are a user who does not have the need to access Medicare Advantage Part C data, you will be able to use the new connectivity with your existing HARP account. Whether that HARP account is what we reference as traditional HARP account or EUA-based HARP account, it won't matter. The delineation or the difference is only for the users who do have the need to access Medicare Advantage Part C data. In that case, to have a seamless experience of accessing that data via the new pipeline, you would need to ensure that you use EUA-based HARP account. And if you have any questions about it, I encourage you to submit a ticket, and we will work with you on, on what that means for your team.
Okay, thanks, Justina. So a couple more came in. How will it work from the jobs?
So I think Trupel touched on it. I don't know if you want to chime in again on the jobs, Trupel.
Yeah, sure, Justina.
So can you elaborate if there are any differences when the users will be submitting jobs via the new pipeline? The one that I can think of is the elimination of the 4 hours limit to the existing pipeline, so the users wouldn't have to worry about that limitation. Is there anything else that would be enhanced for the users?
Yeah, and the second thing which I mentioned about accessing to IDR data with HARP ID and doesn't necessarily have to log in separately through UID. So that's the another difference I would say for the jobs, in addition to the token timeline we enhanced.
If I could cut in, one of the major benefits is going to be that jobs will now be, you'll be able to use jobs in the IDR CDR connector. Before you had to sign in via the activation code, which means you couldn't run jobs. Now we'll be connecting via federated catalog, which means you'll have your own catalog and you'll be able to actually create jobs instead of just having to run via all-purpose compute.
Thank you,
So,
Lauren.
and Justina, this is the one I ask the question. Thank you very much for the answers. Right now, basically, we need to have that extra step to authenticate through the jobs, and I'm guessing we won't. If I understand well, we won't need to do that anymore, right?
That is
Correct.
true, with the caveats that I have mentioned, right? Whether you would have to access Part C data or not.
We do need to access Part C, so that's my follow-up question, how that will work with the Part C.
So in that case, if you recall from our use case conversation, the recommendation would be to ensure that your users have the EUA-based HARP IDs so that you would be able to experience the seamless connection to the IDR data without having to do the secondary authentication.
Okay, so if they have whoever runs the job has that authorization, will it need to authenticate again, basically, when we're running the job? Or that will be flawless?
If you are logging into Databricks with your 4-digit HARP account, then your experience will be seamless and will not require secondary authentication.
Great, thank you very much. That's a great news. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so there is a question from Daniel, who is an occasional OIG user and uses both IDR and CDR. In short, the way the data is presented in either environment is different, meaning what the references to the schemas themselves, to the tables, to all the way down to the field level are different between CDR and IDR. It's same data, but when you run your scripts, you have to reference the data differently. We are outlining the details on our findings and our code comments. So if you could please visit our portal, authenticate to our portal, and then navigate to code comments, you will be able to see all of the details that we have posted in so far. Next question is
Justina, if it's okay, could we circle back to some of those questions just so we can move to our next presentation?
Sure.
And then if we have time at the end.
No problem.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much to Justina and Trupal for that presentation. And thank you to our users for the awesome interactions and questions. We'll be sure to get those all published, even if we don't get them all answered today. We'll send them off, make sure everything gets answered, and then publish them all to the portal. And that goes for all our presentations today. So with that, let's move over to Paul's presentation on iKey's data changes in the CDR.
Thanks, Julia. So today I'm going to talk about the keys to iKey's migration and how that's impacting where you go for the different data that you need related to the providers, provider level data, survey data, that kind of thing. So if we could go to the next slide. So the keys migration started in for survey and cert related data began in May of 2021. And the goal is to complete the last of the migrations by the end of this year, calendar year. So we're doing it by provider type. So as we will launch like 2 to 3 providers at a time for the smaller ones, some bigger ones have been 1 at a time. You want to go to the next slide? So far, prior to this year, we've migrated home health agencies, ASC providers, hospice, nursing home, and OPO providers. We migrated HHAs and ASCs and the hospices in 2021. Nursing homes and OPOs were migrated last year. Next slide. And already this year, we've migrated several other provider types. So end-stage renal disease, ESRD providers, portable X-ray, CORF, OPT, SLP, and ICF IID providers have all been migrated over since the beginning of this year. Next slide, please. So what's left to finish in this year, we'll have the federally qualified health centers, FQHCs, and the rural health centers, RHCs, are planned to migrate on July 13th. The psychiatric residential treatment facilities and community mental health centers are planned to migrate on August 10th. Hospital providers are planned to migrate September 26th, sometime in September 26, 2026. Tentatively, I believe it's set for the September 21st, but that has not been finalized yet. CLIA is actually in the progress of migrating data. All of that migration should be complete by the end of November 2026. And then accrediting organization information, or what wasn't Assure, So that will be planned to be available in December of 2026. For these that do not have an exact date, the date hasn't been finalized or published yet, but this is kind of the estimated date based on our PI planning and roadmaps. Next slide, please. So what does this mean to you who are using the keys and iKeys data in the CDR? So once a provider is migrated to iKeys, that data is no longer updated in the Keys Casper or Keys Casper ACS schemas. So the data will still be there from a lot of the provider types, but it's frozen. So as of, for example, as of March 23rd, when ICF IIDs were migrated, no new data is going into that related to that provider type surveys. All of the data that was available has been migrated to iKeys schemas. So going forward, you should be starting to use the iKeys underscore schemas instead of the Keys Casper and Keys Casper ACS schemas for each provider type. For the data for this year, we'll have the data in the Keys underscore schemas will be available for roughly 3 months or so to allow people to kind of validate their queries between one system to the other. But after that, we will be starting to remove that data from the Keys Casper and Keys Casper ACS schemas so that people don't accidentally run queries on stale data. One caveat that I do want to state for the migration is that if you are researching providers that terminated more than 10 years ago, a lot of that data was not migrated over into iKeys. So if you see data that's not there for old terminated providers, that is the reason why. Next slide, please. So kind of wanted to highlight where you would go for different data, since it is laid out differently in iKeys versus Keys. The iKeys provider schema will give you the provider level demographic information. So whether they're deemed, their operating status, provider types, the kind of core basic information that's not necessarily coming from a survey, that is more at that demographic level, their branches or other locations. The iKeys survey schema includes all aspects of the survey related data. So that includes independent dispute resolution and informal independent dispute resolution data. It will be all the citations, all the survey forms. So what was in a provider type certification provider type schema in Keys will be in the provider type form number. So like, for example, for ASCs, the ASC data from the form 377 will be in the ASC form 377 table. Next slide, please. iKeys enforcement. So this is all the enforcement related information, including any of the CMP details and appeals information. The iKeys intake schema. So this does have a different EPI code because this does contain PII, PHI. And so this is all the complaint intake and allegation data. The next one is for iKeys regulation. So this is where all the regulation set information is stored. So you would need to join to this to get to the appropriate tag information related to any citations, for example. The next slide, please. iKeys letter schema will have all of the details related to letters and letter template management. And then finally, the iKeys location schema. So this has all of the tables for finding the county, the state region. So you'll need to use this to get to like limiting states, for example, if you want to look up what the state ID is to the state code. Next slide. With that, that kind of highlights the changes that we were making in the IKEYS data, but if there's any questions, we're happy to take them.
So Paul, we did get one in the chat so far that I've seen. So will IKEYS data older than 10 years ever be migrated?
So the only data that my understanding is no. So I believe the retention policy is 10 years or 3 survey cycles. But as far as I believe there's data that's older than that that's still available in the survey schemas. But if they're terminated more than 10 years ago, there's not a plan to go back and load that old data. I believe it's just archived.
Okay, thanks, Paul. And then we got another one. Will there be a new data dictionary created? Also, will health provider deficiencies data will be in the new IKEYS tables?
So the data dictionary is now integrated into Databricks and Unity Catalog and the data catalog. So for all of the IKEYS underscore schemas, everything should be defined in that catalog. We're working to enhance it more to provide better links to the date, all of the corresponding code values for different code fields, that kind of thing. But we're still kind of right now the basics are there. We'll continue to enhance it as we have time and have the information. As far as provider deficiency data, we do have that in the citation table at this time. There isn't anything that kind of summarizes that that was in Casper as of yet. We're still working to get through the migration, and then we're working to look at what was provided in Casper and try to do some of that summarization so that it will be easier for users to get to the data they need.
Okay, thanks, Paul. And then we are getting a couple more questions, but same thing. We're going to record those, and then if we have time at the end, but I just want to make sure that we get through all of our presentations for the day, if that's okay with you.
That's fine. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So with that, we are going to be moving over to Alex's presentation on data operations and governance updates.
Thanks, Julia. Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Clark, and I'm a product owner on the data and analytics team, and I will be covering some operations and governance changes in the CDR today. You can jump to the next slide. So the first topic is about the Delta table migrations that we've been working on. You guys might have seen articles over the last several months about this work, and we have just completed this as of yesterday. So we are officially complete with all of our Delta table migrations. So we converted certain Parquet tables to Delta tables, and this is a backend enhancement that improves performance, reliability, future scalability of the platform. So for data users, this transition is designed to be completely seamless. So no action required from you all at this time, just informative. So any existing queries, notebooks, dashboards, anything that you do today is unaffected and automatically gets read from these Delta tables now. Access permissions have not changed. The views will automatically point to the updated Delta tables, and our refresh schedules on this data does remain the same. On the next slide, so we can go ahead and jump, is a list of all of the impacted schemas that we've touched. So tables under the schemas listed on this slide here are where the changes have been made. Again, migrating them from Parquet to Delta tables in Databricks. So no action required. This is purely informative to let you know that this work is complete. And if you do need any more information or would like to read more about any of these releases, please review the news and events section in the portal. So there are several articles, so I don't have the specific links to the articles themselves, but any of the releases that we've completed will be in that news and events section in the portal. So that's where you'll find all of those Delta table releases that we've completed. And we can go ahead and jump to the next slide. So the next topic here is about an access update for beneficiary data. We have sent out an article and an email about this. So this is just a reminder of an upcoming access related change for organizations that are using the beneficiary data schema. So the current EPI code, EDB, which is what provides access to this beneficiary schema, is being retired and replaced with a new EPI code, which is that EDB USR one there on the screen. So any organization that is currently accessing or wishes to access that beneficiary data schema should update their DUAs to include the EDB USR code, and just make sure to upload that updated DUA to the CCSQ portal. And once you do that, your access will be automatically provisioned and no other action is required. We are scheduled to complete this transition by June 30th, so next week. And organizations that don't make this change in time may experience interruption in access to the beneficiary schema. So we do encourage organizations to do those DUA updates as soon as possible if you haven't already. And we did send out an article announcement on this. So that should be getting dropped in the chat with more information. So if you would like to review more on that, please review that link with the announcement, and that'll take you to, again, that news and events section in the portal, but the specific article for this change. Also happy to answer any questions in the chat related to this one. And that's all for this slide. We can jump to the last slide. So the final topic I'll be covering today relates to MBISG and MCBS cost and survey data, as well as the MCBS crosswalk data. So this is a brand new announcement. We will be sending out an article today with a lot more information, but wanted to use this town hall space to present this to the community. So access to these data sets in the CDR, so in the CDR prod catalog in Databricks, will be deprecated by the end of the year, so December 31st of this year. And the reason for that is because we do now have equivalent data sets that will be available in the CCW catalog that's in Databricks. So a separate catalog, but still accessible within our CDR Databricks environment for orgs that have the correct EPI codes in their DUA. So to support this transition, we are updating the existing EPI codes that provide access to this same data, the MBISG, MCBS data, to now, in the CDR, to now provide access to the equivalent data within the CCW catalog. And that transition should be complete by next week. So as early as next week, orgs that currently have the right EPI codes for these data sets in the CDR will have access to the same data sets in the CCW catalog without needing to make any changes. So again, if your org already has the required EPI codes in your DUA within the portal, you don't need to submit a new DUA. You'll automatically get access to this same data over in the CCW catalog. Although the timeline is, a little bit further away with the December 31st deprecation date, we do want to encourage users to begin evaluating and testing with the CCW schemas and data sets, and then also just review the article that we'll publish today for any additional details. There's some details in there about some differences between the CDR data sets and the CCW versions of the data. So, as soon as orgs can start testing and validating against that in their code, all this early planning and testing will help ensure a smooth transition ahead of that December timeline. I think there's one more slide here, just a note about how to, again, so recommended next steps here, try to start using that data next week or as soon as possible once access is made available. Reach out to us if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, and again, those key dates there on the timeline as it currently stands. And that's all for me today. I can answer a couple questions if time allows. If not, I'm happy to respond in the chat to any questions that come up.
Yeah, Alex, we are running a little tight on time and I don't see any questions yet. So are you okay with, if any arise, just hitting those in the chat?
Yeah, that sounds good.
And I did
Yeah, I
just see
think-
one come in, if you wouldn't mind. And if not, if we do have time at the end, I just have a feeling we're going to be tight, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this latest question might actually be for the iKeys
Oh,
updates.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, happy to answer any questions that come through in the chat. Please also feel free to find me on Slack. I think my name on Slack is Alexandria Clark, my full name. But yeah, happy to answer any questions, reach out to our support team, anything like that. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. Okay, so next we are going to be passing things over to Julie for the CDR data catalog updates and restrictions.
Okay, hello, my name is Julie Alvarez. I'm a product owner for the CDR data catalog. You could go to the next slide. I just wanted to highlight some recent enhancements as well as as well as changes to or some restrictions within the data catalog that have occurred since the last town hall, so over the past couple of months. So on this slide, talking about the enhancement of providing a visibility into the data refresh schedule. This was something that had come up as something that the users would like to see when they filled out the data catalog survey. So we did put the data refresh schedule information as well as links to the data dictionaries, if there are one for that schema, in the schema description within the catalog. Databricks developers are the ones who can access this. So in order to see any data dictionary files, you would need to click on the link, have a Databricks developer role, and then you'll be taken into Databricks to view and access those files. If there are any data owners out there who wish to provide a new or updated file, please submit them through the data and analytics request form, and that link is listed here on the slide. Can you go to the next slide? And then as a reminder, back on April 8th, we restricted the schemas to 55 specific schemas. Based on DUA provisioning and schemas that were classified as public data. In the slide, there is a link to the list of the schemas, which you can check out when you get the slide deck. If you are the owner of a schema that you want to be made available to all users of the CDR data catalog and you don't see that schema on this list, please submit a data and analytics request and include the name of the schema that you wish to make available, and we'll take a look at that. And that's all I had. There's just some quick reminders. If you have any questions, I can answer them in the chat.
Thank you so much, Julie. I'm not seeing any questions yet, but that would be great if you wouldn't mind just keeping an eye out as well.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right, thank you so much. Our next presentation is Chandria with Training Hub updates.
Hello, I'm Chandria Scott, and I'm the training specialist with the CCSQ and data analytics team. And I am going to share my screen. All righty. And today I'll be walking you through the enhancements that we have made to the Training Hub. So these changes were driven by our user community feedback. Some of the things that we were hearing was that people weren't sure what training was available. People weren't sure what training was right for their skill level. And many of our training sessions are live sessions and not everyone could attend. So we have created learning paths. And the learning paths are a new feature to better organize our training content. And the paths are beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So if you are newer, you would look at the beginner trainings and build up. And if you feel like you're a little bit more experienced, you could go to the intermediate or advanced training. So let me show you an example. So when you look under the beginner trainings, you'll see that there is a mix of videos, which are our training presentations, and we also have knowledge-based articles. here. And you can tell from the icon if it is a training video or a knowledge-based article. So what you'll see here is that you'll see how long the training is, you'll see what the training covers, and who the audience for the training is. And on some of the trainings, you'll also see if there are any supplementary trainings that we think would be of value to continue your learning, you'll see that as well. So that is one of the beginner trainings in the path. The micro trainings are all going to be under 10 minutes. And then the larger presentations that came from actual live trainings will also say the amount of time that you'll have to commit to do the trainings. And I'll give you an example of an interactive training here. So this is a training that was an interactive live session, and the facilitator for the training had an exercise that had problems that you would work in a notebook. And I recommend, if you're going to take a training like this, if you have two screens, maybe you have the training presentation on one screen where the facilitator is walking you through how to do the problems and any information. And then maybe you're pausing and then you're going on your other screen with your Databricks notebook open and actually working through the problems. You'll notice that I am logged in here into Portal. I think it's best practice to make it a habit of every time you're coming here to go ahead and log in. There are training materials that you will not be able to access unless you have logged in. So if there is an accompanying Code Commons lecture, you need to be logged in order to see that lecture. All right. And even though these trainings are characterized as beginner, intermediate, and advanced, maybe you see yourself as a beginner training. We still encourage you to take a look at the more intermediate trainings. You'll be surprised at maybe there are concepts and skills that you have that you didn't know, and you'll be able to follow along. We think it's a good practice to use this as part of your workflow for ongoing training. We are updating this space on a regular basis, so we're constantly making improvements. So this could be a great place to come maybe every week, and you're starting at one of the trainings and just as time allows, working your way through.
And then Chandra, we do just
yes.
have to wrap here in 1 minute.
Okay. All right. So let me close up. We appreciate any feedback you have about this space. So if you go to the Training Hub support section and you scroll down to the end, the help us improve, you can send us any feedback that you have about the Training Hub here, and we do read every piece of feedback. All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much, Andrea. Okay, so our last presentation of the day is going to be 10 CCSQ data and analytics resource awareness and best practices.
Awesome, thank you. I'm actually going to immediately hand it over to Laura. I hope you were all paying attention to everything Chandra was saying because you're going to be tested on it. We've decided to gamify our last bit here to wrap things up. It's going to be a Kahoot. If you've never done Kahoot before, you just have to go to kahoot.it in your web browser or your phone and then type in that number, and it's going to be like a little quiz. And you could be as anonymous as you want. You could put in a name. You can make yourself a pug wearing sunglasses or a zombie wearing headphones. I forget what the options are.
And I think what we can do now, can everyone see my screen?
And I typed it out too in case people would like to join from their phone.
Perfect. Thank you, Tim.
All right. The first one's easy. Which statement best describes your familiarity with the CCSQ DNA Training Hub? And I think we've got about 15 seconds for each of these, so No need to overthink. Excellent. Looks like most of you are veterans, right? You've used it before. I know about it, but have not used it. Great. So we're going to talk more about it. We can go on to the next one. Where would you go first to find materials from past CCSQ DNA training events? You would indeed go to the training hub. If you selected one of those other options, I think the next question will clear things up for you. So where would you go for CCSQ DNA code snippets or technical code-heavy materials that require authentication? It is Code Commons. That is where we host most of our code-based stuff, and it is behind an authentication wall. So actually, I'm not going to say anymore because I think the next question is gonna say what I meant. Which statement best describes how the Training Hub and Code Commons work together? Training Hub houses the training materials, and then the Code Common and related Code Commons links. So Training Hub will often link to Code Commons for additional material. Where can users find links to related Code Commons materials or Databricks notebooks for a CCSQ DNA training topic? In the related Training Hub article. That should be your starting point, and everything else will be linked out of there. So that's how you can find pretty much everything you might need. All right. How confident are you that you can find CCSQ DNA training materials and related technical resources? I love these GIFs. All right. See, mostly fours, a little bit of three, a lot of fives. So that's good. That makes me feel good. If you're not confident, don't worry. Everything on Training Hub is relatively easy to find. I think there are search criteria. Chandru did an amazing job of organizing things and making them easy to find. So just playing around on that website, clicking links that we've posted in the chat should go a long way. Or you could just reach out to somebody for help, and oftentimes things will get sent to you that they need to be. And we have a bonus question for you. When working in a Databricks notebook, what cluster option should I choose? I added this one. That's right, your personal compute. The wrongest answer is serverless compute. That is actually why this question is in here. You should never, ever, ever be using the serverless compute, even though it is the default. The other option here that people put are your org's compute. I'm not sure if your org has a compute, but it's generally infeasible to use it because only one person can be using a given compute at the same time. So you should have your own personal compute with your org's policy attached to it. And I think if we have time, I'm going to do a quick screen share about how to not accidentally use serverless. Should only take about 30 seconds. All right. So I've got, sorry, it's taking a long time to share my screen. I think we're okay. So here is Databricks. And when you go to create a new notebook, here we've got a nice blank notebook. Check this out. It says serverless up here. That means as soon as I start coding and as soon as I hit enter, it's going to attach to a serverless compute. This is bad. It is the default because Databricks is trying to sell us something. We don't want it. So never, ever, ever use serverless. If you accidentally use a little bit of serverless, that's okay. Just remember to switch it back. But if you leave serverless on for too long and you use too much serverless, we find out and we're going to send you an email. So you don't want to get in trouble with us. Don't use serverless. Switch to your own cluster that you have already made. For example, mine has my own name on it. Use that instead. Easy. Thank you. That is it for me. And thank you, Laura, for setting up the Kahoot.
All right, thank you so much. I will switch back to screen share now. So thank you so much. And I hope everyone, we see you at quarter 3.